I'm very excited today that we're going to do a presentation about social media. This is specifically for our facilitators, but also for just people who consider them smart champions, consider themselves smart champions. People who want to spread the word about SMART, anybody who's interested in learning a little bit more about social media. And so we've invited one of our volunteers, Corey Oberden, to come and speak with us. I think it's going to be very, very interesting. Let me start by welcoming everybody, thanking you for being here. I want to mention, because I don't do this often enough, please remember, we need donations. We appreciate your donations. Please give what you can. Anybody who is having trouble with the control panel, seeing how that works, there is a red button up at the top right of your screen with a white arrow that will toggle a control panel on and off, and then you can see other people's names and the little chat window down at the bottom. Let me very briefly tell you about Corey just a little bit. She has worked in online marketing since 1999 and has specialized in social media since 2003. She helps guide clients in navigating the many options that they have by providing strategy, consulting, training, and content development in all areas of social media and online marketing. In addition, Corey has been helping us here at SMART to grow and shape our overall social media presence since we started using social media with Facebook. She helps us maintain our Facebook page and has provided invaluable media marketing advice to us over many years now. We are delighted that she has agreed to speak and to introduce her to our community. And with that, we're going to get started. Corey, it's all yours, and I may need some cues for the slides, so I'll just say that, and you may see that as we go. And I guess I should unmute Corey, and then we can hear her. There we go.
All right. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Hooray. All right. Well, thank you so much, first of all, for having me. And I'm so excited to be able to do this. I love SMART as an organization, and it's been really exciting for me to see how SMART has developed what SMART proper as an organization and the different organizations in different countries have done with social media over the last almost 5 years that I have been working with SMART. But I also know that as meeting facilitators, and I've actually taken the facilitator training, but I haven't yet made the leap to being a facilitator because I have small people who live with me and my schedule is very crazy. But knowing what the facilitators go through, particularly in trying to get people to your meetings, I thought that this might be helpful. You can actually go to the next slide, Dee. Today we are going to talk about a few different things. We're going to look at Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and then a few other methods that I use with some other nonprofits and also that some SMART meetings are using to kind of share them with everyone. This is a condensed version of some different trainings that I've done. So if I don't touch on something that you have a burning question about, the presentation is actually broken down into chunks. So we're going to cover Facebook, and then we're going to cover Twitter, etc. And after each section, we will have time to answer questions. So if I don't touch on something that you have a burning question about, feel free to ask me when we break for questions. If I think that the question will take me off into a huge tangent or that it's an incredibly long answer, I may tell you that I will follow up because some issues involving social media are, if you can believe it, really, really complex. So I will do that, so I will let you know. But first of all, just to level set a little bit, and how I approach social media, particularly as I approach it, and as I approach this presentation for facilitators, is that I view social media from an organizational standpoint. What that means is you are you're a person, but you're also a facilitator who represents a meeting or a group of meetings. If you're lucky, maybe you do more than one meeting, or there's more than one facilitator in your city. So you are Corey Overton, random person, but you're also the smart meeting in Omaha. But before we get there, I know sometimes people have questions about how to approach social media and how much business to put in and how much personal. And I actually couch business as anything that you do that you want other people to do too. So going to a smart meeting could be one of those things. Having people buy Mary Kay could be another of those things. So this is just kind of a quick and dirty social media primer for how best practice etiquette is in talking about personal versus business, for lack of a better word. Facebook is primarily viewed from a personal use standpoint as mostly personal with some business mixed in. And I'm hoping, and if anybody wants to type in that they do or don't, I'm guessing that many of you have Facebook profiles. And so you probably all followed that one person, or you're friends with that one person who like can't stop talking about the thing that, excellent. So they can't stop talking about like the fact that they're selling Amway or something like that. And from a personal use standpoint, that can get kind of annoying. So the general rule of thumb that we use for Facebook is that it's 80% personal, 20% business. Business could be anything from like a smart meeting to you know, you're selling something to you're starting a new business. Twitter, on the other hand, is a mix of personal and business. On one hand, it could be that there are people who use Twitter and they never talk about work or business or what they do. There are organizations on Twitter. SMART is on Twitter, for example, and you will never see the Smart Recovery Twitter account talking about what Charlie had for lunch. And I certainly hope he does not do that. He doesn't, but you'll never see that. LinkedIn, on the other hand, is all business all the time. So if you look at these three networks using kind of that overall view, what we're actually going to look at then is, so if this is the case, how might an organization or you as a facilitator use them to get people to know more about SMART, or to keep in touch with your meeting attendees or your potential meeting attendees. And we are going to start with the kind of big network in the room, which is Facebook. So Dee, you can move on to the Facebook slide, or one of them. So we're going to take a look at Facebook, and I probably will spend the most time on Facebook. And for those of you who hate Facebook, I apologize for that, but it is typically, you know, it has the most users. It has the most spread of users, exactly. So it has the most spread of users from a demographic standpoint. You know, it has people who are 13 for better or for worse, and it has up to, you know, I think probably some of my pages have people who are in their 90s who follow them. So it does have the largest spread. Not everybody uses Facebook. It might feel like they do. But Facebook really starts actually on the Facebook profile. Facebook profiles are the personal profiles of individuals. And when I talk about that 80-20 mix of personal and business stuff, that's what I'm talking about, is what you personally post on your Facebook profile. To do anything on Facebook, you have to have a profile. So I have a lot of clients who say, well, we like a Facebook page, but none of us want to use a Facebook profile. And I say, you kind of have to have one to have the other. Profiles, and actually what you're looking at now is my profile. And I apologize, I just had to stick a picture of my son in there. Profiles can have high or low levels of security based on the preference of the individual whose profile it is. Now, Well, thank you. Now, if you are Dee or Sherry or Roxanne, who are all friends of mine on Facebook, this is what you will see when you visit my Facebook page. Anyone else, if you wanted to look me up right now, my URL for my Facebook page is facebook.com/Corey.Overton. You would not see a whole lot. That's because my security preferences are locked down because I don't want people I don't know seeing my photos, my work stuff, so pretty much what you would see is the information in the About section and probably some quote from Doctor Who that I posted back 2 or 3 years ago. You can be completely private, like I am, or you can be semi-private, where some stuff that you post is to the public, some stuff is only to friends or to connections. But the thing to remember about Facebook, and if you are a facilitator, this is actually super important to understand. If you're going to run a Facebook page or a group, your personal information is only as safe as your least security conscious, I say friend, but I mean connection on Facebook. To put it even more bluntly, your personal information and what you post is only as safe as the dumbest person you're friends with on Facebook. Just to give you an example, if you post something and your profile is completely locked down and you don't want anyone to see it, think about that one person you know who has absolutely no sense of privacy and might copy and paste your photo or copy and paste what you've done and send it to another friend. So I like to say that just because your profile is locked down, you're not necessarily, social media is still public. So everything that you do in the social media sphere is public. The reason I say that is because as facilitators, and I think we've already seen this with the Smart Facebook page, there are many different levels of understanding about security as it relates to Facebook. Some people are 100% comfortable with talking about their personal issues and their struggles and maybe why they're using Smart on Facebook, and some people aren't. And some people might not be okay with it, but they might not realize that they're talking to an entire public world. So as you choose to maybe look at running a Facebook page, for example, you're going to need to remember that. I'm going to talk a little bit about moderation in the sense of making sure that people don't inadvertently hurt themselves by posting things they probably don't understand they're posting in public. So we can actually go on to the next section because we've stayed on this page far too long. And we're going to actually look at what a Facebook page is. So Facebook pages are, amazingly enough, a lot of people think that Facebook pages are just for businesses or nonprofit organizations or brands. But in reality, anyone can create a Facebook page. Clubs, websites, I work with a lot of bloggers who actually have Facebook pages for their own personal website. Neighborhood associations can create Facebook pages. There's no barrier to entry for creating a Facebook page. They don't check by making sure that you have a website, for example. Unlike personal profiles, which can be locked down, Facebook pages can be viewed by anyone. You can occasionally block a problem user, but they can still log on to another account and see your stuff. Anyone who likes a page, essentially, when you do that actual act of liking a page, you're essentially, what you're doing is signing up to get the updates from the page on the Facebook feed. The thing that's tricky about Facebook pages, there's really 3 things that if you are considering, and I actually think that a Facebook page for a smart meeting, whether you meet once a week or you have one of those incredibly lucky cities where you have 2 or 3, or if you have a private meeting, it might be different, like at a closed institution. But for those public meetings, a Facebook page can be a really great way to keep in touch with people without having to get everybody's email address. Or make sure that you have a phone tree or something like that. So for a smart meeting or group, I do recommend updating at least once a week. Even if it is, and you feel like you are repeating yourself 17 times over, don't forget our meeting is on Thursday at 8 o'clock. Getting people into the habit of understanding that they can go to your page as a resource is kind of like literally the bare minimum of what you can do. For a SMART meeting or a city, maybe a city where you have 2 or 3 or 5 or 10 meetings, you could update about upcoming meetings. But other things that you can do as well is, absolutely the main SMART page, which you see on the slide, has a ton of information. Some of it you can share, it's inspirational stuff or questions or research or prompts that you can share with your page, and that's something that totally recommend doing. It's almost like ready-made content for you. The other thing that you can do is also share information on upcoming SMART events, so any of the podcasts or webinars or things like that. The other thing that you can also look at doing in terms of content, because content is really where most people like hiccup. They think it's going to be the actual starting of the page and the actual getting of people to like them, and in reality it's thinking up something to post every week. So your meeting times or dates or any changes would be one thing. Stuff from SMART proper would be another thing. Finally, the last thing would be, if you have, the SMART blog has articles, but if there are articles that you as a facilitator find interesting, or tools on the SMART website, perhaps your group was talking about doing a CBA one week, sharing worksheets from the SMART website that have those CBAs, things like that. There's really a wealth of content that you can use and find, particularly if you're, particularly if you limit yourself to 1 or 2 times per week. If you get huge, so for example, if you get 5,700 likes like the SMART Facebook page has, you would want to post more often. But for most of you, it is something that if you're going to have 50 to 100 fans or followers, you can get away with 1 to 2 times per week. So if you want to go on to the next page, I'll actually talk a little bit about how to actually start a page. There's a few tiny little things that I want to make sure you guys know. And by the way, this presentation, I'm not literally going into here's how you update your Facebook page, all of that stuff. Facebook has an excellent training tool, but if we did that, we would be here until 11 o'clock at night. I don't think anybody wants that. But to make a Facebook page, there's 3 things that I want to make sure you guys know. The first is you can go to this wonderful URL right at the top, and it will take you to this beautiful little page right here. You do need to be logged in. What you do is you select your type of page. So as you can see on this page, it has 6 different options for you. Fortunately, a number of them are totally blocked out already. SMART is not an artist or a band, or you are not Justin Bieber, so that one is out. Entertainment, while we all love SMART meetings, they don't really classify as entertainment, so that one is out. Brand or product, you would pick that if you actually had a physical product to sell, so that one is out. That leaves 3 other options. Local business or place, the main requirement to start a local business or place page is that you have a physical address. So I know that most SMART meetings take place in different libraries or mental health centers, etc. You don't have an actual there's not a building that people go to that's just a SMART building. So local business or place is out because of that. I personally recommend company, organization, or institution, which a lot of my nonprofit clients use, even those that are basically could be considered like SMART meetings would be a sub-organization. The other option is cause or community. You might be kind of inclined to do a cause or community page. The problem with cause or community pages is that they tend to be, well, to give an example, there are several cause or community pages that have started up in the wake of what's kind of happening down in Ferguson. I live in Nebraska, so we're fairly close to Missouri, so it's kind of top of mind for us right now. But there have been definitely different pages started on both sides of the issue. Those are really driven by topical. Sometimes they're serious, sometimes they're different, like bring back insert television show here. So I really feel that organization kind of fits SMART the best, or any SMART meetings the best. And then we can go on to the next steps. The next page, sorry. The final piece, and this is kind of the part where people get to it and they're like, crud, I didn't think about any of this. So this is kind of why I wanted to make sure you guys went over this. You have to choose a category. Nonprofit is best for SMART, mostly because the parent organization, SMART, the main SMART page has nonprofit. And then you select Get Started, and then you see this lovely page. And I fake made a page called a SMART test page. And I didn't end up making it, but just so you can see this. You fill out the remaining information. What you really need to get your page 100% live is a short description that tells you what the page is about. You only get 155 characters, so it's not the place to say SMART Recovery stands for blank and we do blank. It's literally the place to say this is the page for SMART meetings in Omaha, Nebraska. You do not need a website, so if you have one or you have a section of the website with your meeting information on it, you can include that, but you don't need it. The other thing that you need is a unique Facebook name. So if you look actually up at the Choose a Unique Facebook web address, basically that's your username. And so what you could actually choose is something like SMART Nebraska or SMART Omaha, and I use that again because I live here. There are very few character limitations in this particular URL, but the easier you can make it to remember, the easier it is for you to say, oh yeah, you can find us on Facebook, we're SMART Omaha. That's the easy way for people to find where you are. The final question you'll get is insert page name here a real organization, school, or government? You can say no. The reason why, even though, yes, SMART is a real organization, that is actually for organizations that are in the government, because and schools are actually subjected to very specific Facebook rules and regs. I run a couple government pages for the city of Omaha, and we actually have some legal stuff that we have to jump through that you don't have to jump through. So you can just hit no and save your info, and it will help you start populating. The only other thing you need is a profile picture. The best thing would be a logo if you have it. You can add favorites, so that would be the SMART Recovery main page and any of your friendly other facilitator pages. The final thing that it'll have you do is it'll prompt you to, oh, hooray, you guys have, I figured you had SMART logos. So you have SMART logos that you can use. The final step, though, is it'll tell you to reach more people. And what happens when you reach more people is it will basically, it's prompting you to invite your friends. Oh, really? You can say yes. Sherry just said, so the answer to the real organization, school, or government is no. I've insisted it'd be yes. You can absolutely say yes. Just know that depending on, I think where you're located, you might get asked some extra questions, but you can absolutely say yes. That's totally fine. I always just say no because it's easy. And sometimes I've actually gone back and I've had to change it. So in the case of like one of the city organizations that I work with, we have had to change it. No works, I think they mean real as in real living in this place, like where you are you an official government entity? Some of the hoops you have to jump through if you are like a political parties, for example, they have a lot of fun stuff they get to do that we don't have to deal with. but the one thing they'll ask you and reach more people is to invite all of your Facebook friends to like your page. And here's what I have to tell you about that. Don't do it. Think about if you are inviting people to like your page, don't invite everybody on your friends list. Invite people who are relevant to your page. So if you are friends, for example, with people who go to your SMART meeting, or people who are maybe you're friends with the person who runs the community center that you are meeting in, then absolutely you can add them. But don't add your mom or your sister or your brother or things like that. What it does is it dilutes your audience. And what happens is you get what we call in the industry friends and family syndrome, where the only people you're reaching are people who don't really care, but they just liked your page because they're your mom. But what you do need to do, yes, more is better. Sherry just asked, more is better isn't necessarily true. That's absolutely the case. What you want, rather than 1,000 fans, is it's better to have 50 people who really need your services and want to hear from you than 1,000 people who do not care what you have to say. So how do you get those people? So there's really 3 things that I mostly tell people to do. Number 1 is listed on your meeting materials. Any signs you have, tell participants about it. Every meeting, I know we mentioned a bazillion things in meetings. Make this one of those things that's part of that litany that you say, like if you want regular updates or you want to hear what we do when it snows or something like that, like us on Facebook or follow us on Facebook. And now we can go to the next page really quickly because I have talked a lot and we're only on like slide 10. So there's one other option that facilitators can use. They're Facebook groups. Groups are basically discussion-oriented areas for individuals who have a similar interest. I'm outing myself as a giant nerd. This is the Omaha Doctor Who fans page club group that I belong to. It's the only group I belong to, so I had to show something. Groups can be public, groups can be private, or groups can be invisible, or what Facebook calls secret. Public groups is like this Doctor Who group. If you wanted to go there today, you could look at everything anybody has posted. You can see all of the members. Private groups you can see the members, you can find the group, but you can't see what people have said. So it's private. Invisible means that it's invite only, and you would have to invite someone to have them join. Private groups or invisible groups are a great way to let people, maybe even meeting members, etc., discuss stuff without the risk of exposing their issues to all of Facebook, which we probably have seen people will do. But with groups, you lose the ability to speak to outsiders. So it's not, unlike pages where people can share stuff and you can really kind of, it's more of a communication vehicle versus a discussion vehicle. With groups, really what you end up doing is kind of talking to the choir. The other thing is that in groups, any members can post, unlike pages where the announcements come from the admin or the page owner or the organization. Your friends, in the case of private groups, yes, they do. In the case of invisible groups, no, they do not. Gerardo just asked if, in the case of private or invisible groups, do your friends see that group in your profile? And yeah, so there are things. Groups, I think they can be great, I think, from a meeting standpoint, and I think if you've got a meeting that's been going on for a really long time and you have a great group of core members, maybe it's something that you can do. If you have a lot of members who are maybe just passing through, maybe they're just doing court time, etc., maybe it's not the appropriate venue, but it is something that you can look into. And we can go on to the next page really quickly. If you are interested in doing it, it is sadly not as easy as creating a Facebook page. If you log into your Facebook account, there is a section on the left-hand side, which you'll see my This is kind of like a short version of my news feed right here. And in that big red circle, you'll see the list groups. You can create a group. You can determine your level of group privacy. And then you can invite people. So it's really kind of a three-step thing, very similar to creating a page, but it is a little bit harder to find. If anybody does end up wanting to start a group and has an issue and can't remember how to find it, feel free to grab me, and I'm happy to remind you of where it is. So here's some things to consider with Facebook, and these are the things that, you know, I tell this to organizations that I work with. I don't just, I mean, this is literally kind of my litany of stuff that you need to think about. Whatever you start, you have to plan. So you don't just, hi Dennis, I'm going to hold that question until the end of this. You need to plan. Whether you go with a page or whether you go with a group, you need to figure out prior to actually going the action of starting the page or starting the group. You need to figure out, what do I want to convey to people who follow me or like me or members of my group? How can I let people know about my page? What's the best way to do that? Moderation. So we talked a little bit at the beginning about the fact that some people get the fact that Facebook is public or that social media is public, and some people don't. So from a facilitator standpoint and from a page owner standpoint, moderation is incredibly important. I remember for a while we would, when we first started the Facebook page for SMART, I think you guys still do this, I just don't get asked about it as much because you guys just know. We spent a lot of time deleting spam, so advertisements people were posting to the Facebook page, like for their recovery program or their recovery book or what have you. But it also means deleting or weeding out inappropriate comments. So for inappropriate comments, I'll give you an example. If you happen to notice, if you have a meeting member or somebody who comes to a meeting who has liked your Facebook page and looks at, maybe is still drinking or using, and goes on to Facebook, for example, while they're drinking or using, and is posting things that would, you know, maybe to your meeting Facebook page, that would be something that you would want to moderate that, and by moderating you can delete it. So that's kind of the thing. I work with a child advocacy center, and one of the things that we moderate is, and by moderate I mean deleting inappropriate comments, is they work with abused children, and a lot of times either the children or the parents will come on the Facebook page and leave comments about cases that have either been finalized or are ongoing, and because they involve minors and they involve open cases, we have to delete those immediately. So that's what I mean by weeding out or moderating inappropriate comments. For groups, that would mean monitoring for inappropriate comments by members. Groups can be a little more loosey-goosey, you know, very similar to the SMART message board. You know, people will say what they say, but perhaps if somebody in your group is harassing someone else, you can ban them or delete their messages. The other thing is, we've talked about this already, but posting at least once a week to ensure that the page or the group is viewed as a resource that your members or your followers can see and be used and relied upon. The last little Facebook thing I want to talk about before we get to some questions is using partner pages. So depending on where your meetings are held, the climate of your particular city, what you might be able to do is provide messages to other organizations about your meeting to post on their Facebook pages. So just to give you an example, I mentioned literally just a few seconds ago, I work with a child advocacy center. At their center, they do a bunch of different support groups for parents and different things like that. But they also work with, everybody works in the same building, Child Protective Services, the Omaha Police Department. There's like 5 or 6 different, the FBI has an agency there. Anytime they have a training session or a support group, their Facebook page, and as well as actually their LinkedIn and their Twitter account, we will post messages about those things, even though it is not necessarily hosted or put on by the Child Advocacy Center. A lot of other organizations that do this are community centers, meeting centers. I know here in town in Omaha there is a giant community center that will do this. However, there's a good way to do this and a bad way to do this. So the best way to do it is for you to pre-write 1 to 3 messages about your meeting or your event, and actually physically, either with a piece of paper or via email or even a Facebook message, pass them on to the person who runs the Facebook page with a request if they post, or an ask if they are willing. What I don't recommend you do is not posting unsolicited on other organizations' Facebook pages. Number one, when you post on another organization's page, their fans do not see it unless they are physically on the page. It does not go into their newsfeed. Number two, it annoys the crud out of the admins who have to decide, do we keep it, do we not keep it? I speak both as an admin and I speak as from having to give advice to people, including Smart Recovery, on what to do with unsolicited messages. So that is something, and if you guys want an example of what some of my messages look like, I would be happy to. I have an example. Literally, it's, hey, you know what, community center owner or library, I noticed that you posted a couple of things a couple weeks ago about the meeting, you know, the craft guild meeting in your library. Do you think you could maybe post something, you know, a message or two about the SMART meeting that we have every Thursday night? And, you know, 9 times out of 10, if they don't have a some sort of constraint happening, they will totally do it, because admins desperately need content. So this is absolutely something you can do. So now I guess I saw that we had a few questions. So before we kind of move on to Twitter, maybe we can take 2 to 3 minutes to kind of answer them. And I actually saw 2 questions that I think I can answer shortly. The first one is from Dennis. So Facebook is not a good place to get the word out about a new SMART meeting. So this is a good, this is actually a really good question. Starting a Facebook page for something that doesn't have an audience already can be very, very difficult. However, it would be a good, so I would say if you're literally just starting your SMART meeting, like, or maybe you haven't actually done it yet, I would probably wait to start your, or you could create your Facebook page, but don't expect a lot of followers or a lot of traction in your first few months. However, what you can do using partner pages, you could pre-write messages and have hand them to the place where you're actually holding the meeting, maybe actually even mentioning your Facebook page, putting your Facebook page on any printed materials that you have about your SMART meeting. The key about Facebook and using Facebook to launch new things is that Facebook is a marketing tool, but just like launching a website or starting an email newsletter, you literally have to let people know that there's an outlet they can go to before they know that they can use it. I hope that makes sense. Timothy, I think you said, is Google Plus good? Google Plus is I'm not recommending Google Plus to my to most of my clients except one. Google Plus is very popular for the science community, and it's also very awkwardly popular to the religious community. So a lot of religious organizations are on Google Plus. I would look at I would maybe look at your area and see how many people are using Google Google Plus has done a lot of things wrong with their launch and with their business pages that I'm just not seeing the kind of traction that I think makes it worth people's time. And then I'll take the last question. Is there a confidentiality issue when people join a Facebook page or group for SMART? So the good news is that their friends can, if dependent on their settings, their friends can see that they've liked a SMART page or that they've joined a SMART group, unless that group is invisible. That, though, is really up to the person who has liked the page or joined the group. It's not a liability that you can handle. The other, it's not a liability that the organization needs to undertake or necessarily worry about. Where you can manage that is making sure that if somebody, for example, is drinking and posting on Facebook, that their comments, maybe if they make them on your page, are deleted or are handled appropriately. Whether somebody likes a page, somebody can just like something for a lot of different reasons, then they're getting help for an addiction. Hopefully that makes sense. And why don't we move on? I realize
quick
that I'm...
question related to that.
Yeah.
I have a very quick question related to that, Corey.
Sure.
If you create a Facebook page, however, an organization page for your meeting, you are not personally, as the owner, exposed. Is that correct?
What do you mean by exposed?
Your name, is that associated?
No, they did have a feature, and I'm not sure if it's even available anymore, where you could pick a featured admin. But most brands never used it. The only time I ever used it was when the featured admin was like a national speaker, and that's it. So nobody knows who runs a Facebook page, if that makes sense. And the other thing is, actually, you used to be able to look at everybody who liked a Facebook page, and now if you go to a Facebook page, you will only see the people who like it. You'll only see your other friends who like it. So if I go to a page and Dee and Sherry and Roxanne have all liked the page, I will see them, but I won't see anybody else's name. So, is that, have you passed things on to, well, Hugh, you know what, that is kind of a larger question because there's several different ways to do it. There is a message feature on most Facebook pages, and I will put down to send you a screenshot of how to find that. So let's do a quick look at Twitter. I feel like we're running out of time. I'm sorry. So let's take a quick look at Twitter. Fortunately, the rest after Twitter, it gets easier. And we can actually just go right into what Twitter is. So Twitter, people get a little confounded by Twitter because Twitter is different than Facebook, and most people know Facebook. So what I'm going to do is talk about the differences between Facebook. Oh, just keep going? All right, I'll just keep talking until you guys kick me off. Twitter, so a lot of times I just point out what are the differences between Twitter and Facebook, because mostly everybody knows knows Facebook. So from an organizational standpoint, the biggest thing is that Twitter makes very little differentiation between personal accounts and business accounts. You sign up the same way, you use the same features. The only thing in the last 6 months that is different is that business accounts can sign up for advertising on Twitter, and business accounts can sign up for analytics on Twitter. And this is something that most personal users don't care about and therefore don't use. So that's really the difference. You sign up the same way. On Twitter, the biggest other hump is that all messages have to be 140 characters. And if you want to figure out if that's challenging or not, feel free to try to write a sentence and then realize how many characters you use. And characters are not just letters, they are also spaces and dashes, and I'm pretty sure the sentence, all messages must be 140 characters, that I wrote right there is actually longer than 140 characters. The other thing is that privacy on Twitter is limited. Accounts can either be public or they can be private. 100% of business or organizational accounts are public. I once had a client ask if they could make their business account private, and I told him that if he did that, he was doing Twitter wrong. You can't see anything if an account is private unless you're following that account. And the reason to use Twitter is to get people to follow your account and see what you're saying. And if you're private, you can't do that. The other thing is that whereas Facebook has messages, which I'm sure you're all familiar with, Twitter, there is something called direct messages, but people will have ongoing and very long and sometimes tedious conversations in public. Responses are in public. So most conversations in Twitter are conducted completely in public, and if you really want to do your work, you can find out what people are saying about anything. What you see here is the Smart Recovery Twitter account, which is the page for their Twitter account. What you would see, let's say if we looked at actually my Twitter profile, there is literally no differentiation between what Smart gets and what I get, with the exception of our branding is different. That is all. So where the differentiation comes between personal use and organizational use is really in the types of content that you share. So from a content standpoint, whereas now I'm a business owner, so my account is one of those 50-50 accounts that I talked about earlier, where I might say I just had the best ice cream ever and then share an article on marketing. But Smart, for example, will never talk about the best ice cream ever. I hope not. And if you actually look at the content, it is very much information on meetings and articles from the blog and other stuff like that. Actually, if you want to go to the next page, so Twitter is probably, though, from a barrier to entry standpoint, so Facebook is, if I liken Facebook to like a labyrinthine monopoly of hard to find stuff. Twitter is literally, it would be non-alcoholic ice cream, yes. I hope so. I don't know that they make alcoholic ice cream, so, but it better be really good ice cream. And Hugh just said it would be non-alcoholic ice cream. So Twitter is like literally, it's the easiest thing in the world to start, but it's kind of hard to get into. So literally to sign up to Twitter, even the URL is easy. You go to twitter.com/signup, and everybody enters the same stuff. You fill out your full name. However, and Karen, since you were the last person to type in the chat window, I'm going to pick on you. If you are creating an account for your Smart meeting, the full name that you put in your account would not be Karen Denbelt. It would be Smart, insert your town here, Smart Portland, for example. You would use an email address. I recommend, you don't have to do this. This is a recommendation versus a you must do this. If you have an email address for your meeting, use that email address. Because if for some reason you want to create a personal Twitter account, you can't have two Twitter accounts with the same email. So if you have an email address for your meeting, use it. If you don't and you want to create like a free Gmail one, knock yourself out. That way you don't, especially if maybe if somebody else takes over the Twitter account, if you've got a volunteer who's awesome, maybe you get another meeting going, you both want to use it. It's not tied to your personal email. You create a password, and I'm absolutely not going to tell you how to do that. Use really hard passwords. That's my public service announcement for today. Finally, you want to choose a username, and this is like, it's 15 characters. That's all you get. And it would seem like coming up with a username with 15 characters would be easy, but it can actually be really challenging for two reasons. One, no two Twitter usernames can be the same. So if you are, let's say your name is John Smith, you are not going to get the username John Smith. what you need to do is Twitter will give you alternatives. So if your username is taken, it'll say, how about John Smith 125? But you need to select a username that's also 15 characters or less. So if I was starting a Smart account or a Twitter account for Smart in Nebraska, Smart Nebraska, first of all, is way longer than 15 characters. And I also happen to know, I'm pretty sure that there's someone out there who has tried to be a Smart something else and has made up a Twitter account called Smart Nebraska. We'll just say that there has. You could do Smart Any. Using the example of Smart Portland, let's say Smart Portland is too long. Smart PDX. So Portland, people refer to Portland as PDX. Omaha, we refer to Omaha as OMA. So you could use Smart OMA or Smart NE. So you do need to play with your username, but the reason it's so important is just like that Facebook URL, this is how you can tell people to find you. So if you have like, oh, you can look me up on Twitter, it's Smart TX175 exclamation point. People are not going to remember that. So do try to keep it as simple as possible. The other great thing about Twitter is like they are made to walk people through how Twitter works. So the actual act of setting up your account is a tutorial. It lets you pick accounts to follow. It lets you add a profile image, and again, just like Facebook, use that Smart logo. A bio, which also has to be, everything about Twitter is 140 characters. So just like on that Facebook page, the bio is not the place for Twitter, or Smart Recovery is blankety blankety blue. It would be, this is the Twitter account for Smart in Omaha. Profile picture, I said that already, you need to use a logo. So let's go on to the next piece of Twitter, because the weird thing about Twitter, and I'm happy to Xerox this for you or whatever and send it. It will be in the slides, but if you'd like to keep it. Unlike Facebook, Twitter has its own language. And that is technically what tends to kind of get people a little bit. So I wanted to give you some key Twitter terms just so you can kind of start out. Tweets are the messages that make up Twitter. They have to be 140 characters or less. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that because it's seriously the hardest part of Twitter. Followers are Twitter accounts that follow your account. They can be organizations or they can be individuals. From a facilitator standpoint, you can follow accounts, and I highly recommend you do that. And then you will have people who follow you who are your followers. When you're looking at people to follow, think about your location right now. So if you are in, I'm going to pick a city that's not Omaha, Chicago. Think about different recovery programs that are in your city. Think about different mental health organizations that are in your city. Think about, I don't know, Blue Cross Blue Shield, Illinois, if they have it, or different different insurance companies. Anything related to mental health or getting people information about addiction recovery. Those can be organizations that you follow. I highly recommend that organizations follow organizations rather than organizations follow individuals, unless that individual is someone who already has a large following, who talks specifically about, like, don't go follow, not that any of you would do this, but don't follow Justin Bieber because he has 10 million fans or followers. Follow, I don't know, and I'm blanking on addiction and recovery specialist names. The lady who just wrote that awesome book about women and drinking. Follow her. Ann Fletcher, thank you. Follow Ann Fletcher. Don't follow Justin Bieber. Yes, Dr. Edelstein. So people who are addiction and recovery specialists can be a great way to do that. People who are already like Smart can be a great one to that. Gabrielle Glasser, that's her name. Thank you. I have her book in my bedroom. The third thing is favorites. Favorites are similar to a like on Facebook. However, I'm sure we've all done this. You've liked something on Facebook, and then like one of your friends comments on the fact that you liked something and it was incredibly dumb, like a cute cat video or something, because Facebook broadcasts everything you like to everybody else. Twitter doesn't do that. A favorite is literally just a way of saying to someone, hey, I really liked what you had to say in that tweet. A retweet is when someone takes your message and passes it on to the people who follow them. Conversely, a retweet is also, you can retweet stuff. So if Smart Recovery Proper posted something great, you can take their message and pass it on to your followers, also known as, so it's, you can retweet it to your followers. A reply is when another user responds to you. A direct message, which is also known as a DM, is a private message from one user to the other. And so if you see someone saying, could you DM me with more information about the meeting, that means could you send me a private message. And sometimes, so those are terms that are good to know if you're just getting started out. And let's move on to the next slide so I don't keep you guys too terribly late. Like I said, the biggest hitch with Twitter are the character limits because, you know, I'll tell you right now, so I was working with one of my clients, and it was actually on Wednesday, and I said, hey, we got this question. A police officer asked if one of our training sessions would be good for his organization or his group of officers. And the lady sent me a paragraph, and it was very like business speaky. There were a lot of long words in it. So two things. So Twitter, first of all, has a lovely handy feature which you can see in those giant red circles that as you type in the tweet box, it counts down the number of characters you have left. The second thing is that you can learn to abbreviate. You can abbreviate when you need to. In fact, if I were really going to write the tweet, learn to abbreviate when you need to, I would put the abbreviation for abbreviate. Instead of saying something like, join our meeting on Wednesday, September 9th at 5 o'clock, I would say, join our meeting on 9/12 at 5 p.m. The other thing that I do, though, and I still do this, and I have literally been on Twitter since 2008, I take my messages, especially if I'm doing it, now if I'm doing it personally, I'll just put whatever I want, I don't care. But if I'm doing it for work, I will literally take what I want to say, and then I will just keep editing it down until it fits. Once you've done it a few times, somebody, Gerardo, you said it was stressful. It can really be stressful, but once you get the hang of it and remembering that you don't have to say September, that you can say the date as a number, for example, it gets a little bit easier. The other thing, particularly if you do any sort of business speak or writing for, yeah, you can use that. I would say be careful. Tiggy just asked, can you use for instead of for? I would only do that every once in a while. If you are a business, you do, or an organization, or you're presenting yourself as an organization, you like for is enough of a character. You know, it's a small enough word that it's not worth just using the number. It would be more like instead of writing out Wednesday, using WEDS period. So that kind of thing. The thing that I actually totally forgot what I was going to say. You can, in some cases, send out multiple tweets. The other thing, though, is to remember that everybody's in the same boat as you. So if you do want to remind about meetings, you know, you can do it. And if you have to put something else after your first tweet, like don't forget to bring this, you can do that. I actually occasionally will write multiple tweets. Yes, you can put a link in the message field, and here's the cool, and John just asked this, here's the cool thing. No matter how long your link is, your link can be one of those horrible Amazon.com links that are like 7,000 characters long, or it can be www. yay.com, and Twitter will still count your link as the same number of characters, and that's 17. So if you have a link, you don't get penalized for having a long link or a short link. Twitter automatically shortens all links for you, and they'll still go to the same place. So that's really cool. The other thing, though, and I will say this, right now in the industry, one of the things that everybody is trying to do is to actually get a little bit shorter with their tweets, as if 140 characters isn't enough. We're all kind of looking at doing 120 character messages, because people can actually add on to that by saying, I'm going, or yay, and pass it on as a retweet. So I would not worry about that. I would say use your 140 characters unless you're some sort of Twitter ninja and you kind of take to it like a duck to water. And we can go to the next slide really quickly. So things to consider with Twitter. Almost all of the same things, but slightly different. Planning is the same, and actually literally on every end of every section I have you need to plan. So here's your theme. You need to plan before you decide to do something. Charlie is your Twitter ninja. You need to plan your username, what you want to say, how frequently you want to post, and I'm going to touch on that in a second, and then also how to communicate the account to members and potential members. Twitter is a little bit easier to grow a base out of if you've got nothing else. Yes, I'm sorry, I've gone on for so long. We are past our hour. This was literally an hour when I rehearsed it the first couple times. I keep thinking of things to say. Moderation. Here's the best thing about Twitter. You don't have to moderate. So unlike Facebook, where if people are posting comments on your page, and everybody can see them, the cool thing with Twitter is if people respond to your stuff, the only people who can see that is you and the people who follow the person who responded to you. So thanks, Judy. That's great. You cannot delete other people's posts. You cannot hide people's posts. So feel free to not worry about moderation. However, you need to make sure you're responding to individuals who ask questions. So my recommendation is if you're going to do a Twitter account, check on it at least once a day in case somebody asks you a question like, hey, when is that meeting again? Because they won't look it up. They'll just ask you. So that way you can answer them in a timely fashion. What I do or what I tell my clients to do is check it first thing in the morning, like right when you check your email. And then messages. With Twitter, you want to post at least once a day, at least. And if you have a larger audience, so you'll note that the Smart account posts much more than once a day, I highly recommend, if you're literally sitting there going, oh my God, first you tell me on Facebook I have to post once a week, and now you're telling me on Twitter I have to post once a day, I know what I'm going to do. Here's what I would recommend. Smart posts a lot of great stuff. Feel free to retweet their stuff as much as possible, particularly if it relates to either your meeting or blog posts, etc. You can also consider retweeting information from other sources or sharing articles that you read during the course of your day, or even little thoughts or resources from the Smart website. But on Twitter, it is completely okay to post, for example, if you've got a meeting on Thursday, it's completely okay to post about it on Thursday or on Wednesday and then on Thursday, and then even a follow-up on Friday. By the way, saying don't forget the meeting on Thursday is at the same time. Don't forget our meeting today is at 5 o'clock. Please consider joining us. And then on Friday it would be thanks everyone who joined us. So you can repeat yourself a lot more on Twitter than you can on Facebook. And then I think I have one last thing on Twitter. I'm not sure. I've now forgotten. So if you want to pop on the last slide, it might be things to think about LinkedIn. All right, it's a look at LinkedIn. So Twitter was a little bit shorter because it's a little bit easier, and I don't know how many people want to use it. Does anybody have any questions about Twitter? Other than all of the questions that came up because now you're thinking about fitting in your meeting announcement into 140 characters. Roxanne, you had a pound sign. Is that a question?
I think she's wanting to ask about the use of the hashtag.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so stupid. I'm the social media person, and I'm like, what's the pound sign for? Hashtags. Okay, so if you have a Twitter account, for those of you who don't know, a hashtag, you have a character, okay, so a hashtag, and I'm going to type a hashtag for you. I'm going to type a hashtag message for you in the thing. If you are in please join us for our SMART meeting on 9/1. And that might actually be a little bit longer, but this is just for illustrative purposes. Hashtags are ways that you can highlight specific important words in your Twitter message that if people are looking for them, meaning searching for those words, your relevant content gets into their search feeds. And you'll notice and I actually didn't hit send. So the message I came up with is, if you are in Omaha, please join us for our SMART meeting on 9/1. This is me totally thinking on my feet here, so it's not the best message I have ever written. You'll notice that I did not have, so a hashtag, anything, the pound sign and a word is a hashtag. You'll note that the only hashtag I used was the location Omaha. That's because, number one, if someone is looking for information about it specific to Omaha, you want them to find that. You'll see a lot of people who use messages like it's hashtag, 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 and it's random words. Don't do that. Look for, and you can actually find this in 3 areas, so if you're looking to post about location-specific meetings, for example, look at your local newspaper, look at their tweets, look at your local news stations and look at their tweets, and I'll talk about that one in a second. Look at those, because those are, and yes, that is a hashtag, Roxanne. So pound sign addiction recovery would be a hashtag. You want to look to see what other people are using though. So the reason I'm saying, so if you want to hashtag, you can look at other people's accounts to see what they're using in your area to kind of tag your account. Twitter will not give you options. No, you can. So Gerardo asked if someone else used, not your paper, the local paper's tweets, Sherry. So go to their Twitter account and see what they tag. So Gerardo asked if somebody else used hashtag Omaha, will Twitter tell you options? No. Hashtags are entirely user controlled, which is why I advocate looking and seeing what other people in your area are using. So that's coming back to the planning. Look and see what other people are using. You can use multiple ones. Here's the thing. If you are really trying to be location specific, you'll notice that the SMART Twitter account uses addiction and recovery and alcoholism and a bunch of different hashtags because they're a national organization. If you are a local facilitator and you use national hashtags, very general ones like that, you are going to get national views, and while that's great, that doesn't necessarily put butts in seats at meetings, which is why I advocate for more of a local approach and using your local friendly hashtags. So typically it's either your town name, your state name, or if you have a major airport, a lot of people will use the airport code. So one of the other ones for Omaha is OMA, Portland is PDX. So you can look at that as well. Yes, you want butts and seats in meetings, so that's kind of what we want to geared toward. Does anybody else have any questions about Twitter? No? Yes? If nobody does, we can move on, and if you think of one, we can talk about it after the fact. So we're going to look at LinkedIn. LinkedIn is going to be very abbreviated, and for one reason and one reason only, and we can go to the first slide, and that is that LinkedIn is a professional organization, a professional social network. And Dee, if you want to pop up the next slide with the profile. So LinkedIn is a professional network. It is 100% professional 100% of the time. I like to tell my clients it's not the place for you to talk about your dog. It's not the place for you to talk about Doctor Who or Battlestar Galactica or whatever you're watching. I haven't watched TV in a really long time. It is a place to talk about business stuff. So for those of you who do not work in, for example, the mental health addiction recovery area, but are facilitators, LinkedIn might not be relevant for you. So I'll give myself as an example. I work in marketing, and if I decided to start being a facilitator, would I talk about my meeting on LinkedIn either via my profile or in groups? Probably not, because it's not relevant to my professional experience. I used a lot of SMART principles in my professional experience, but I can't make that tie between what I do in my day-to-day business life and what I do for SMART in terms of facilitation. If you are a mental health practitioner or a social worker or someone who comes into contact with addiction and recovery issues, this can be something that will be very helpful, which is why we're bringing it up. So LinkedIn offers 3 outlets: profiles, company pages, and groups. What you see here on the right-hand side is my friend Kelly, who lets me use her profile when I feel like I've used mine too much. They're basically online resumes. Small overview of your career, current and past positions, membership in, note the word, professional clubs and associations. So for example, if you were the former president, like I was the former president of the American Marketing Association, that's in my LinkedIn profile. I am the president of the knitting club here in Omaha right now. That is not on my LinkedIn profile. Nobody needs to know that, except you guys who now do. So the key to LinkedIn success, using LinkedIn successfully, is to remember that it's for professional use. It's not the place for personal updates, interest, or information. And I would advocate for most of any of you who maybe have a LinkedIn profile, and maybe your shot is less than professional, or like maybe it's like you on vacation. I've seen some really horrible ones. I bet none of you have those, but like maybe it's a shot that your husband or your wife took in the backyard, and you're like, you know, in a tank top, or you've got like a funky hat on. I would say, you know, step that up a notch, do like a wall, like a 3/4 profile shot or something like that. Kelly's is a great example. She actually took it in color and then did it in black and white, so it looks professional. So I'd highly recommend doing that. And let's actually move on to company pages. So this is literally will be relevant to maybe one of you, and I apologize, but I want you to understand how you can use it, and then I will tell those of you who are not practitioners how you might use something like this. So LinkedIn allows for company pages. And really from a SMART-oriented standpoint, I don't recommend, unlike with Facebook where I said, make a page for your meeting, or Twitter where I say, make a Twitter account for your meeting. I don't recommend that if you have a meeting, even if it's a group of meetings, that you do a company page on LinkedIn. Company pages are for organizations. If you are a mental health practitioner, either on your own or part of a group, or you work for maybe an addiction recovery center that does not already have a company page, it could be worth your time to start one with the permission of your organization. If you own it, lucky you, you can just start one. You can promote SMART meetings, or, as I've said before, any other activities your organization is involved with. Like I said, if you're a non-practitioner who's a facilitator, don't create a page for your group or your meeting. This page that I have right here, and the reason why I bring this particular page up is I mentioned the Child Protection Center that I work for. They are the ones who will post information on training sessions that they are holding at their organization, but also training sessions that other organizations are holding at their location. So what you can do is, again, especially if you're hosting meetings at a mental health facility or a community center, or through a hospital, for example, that would be the time where you could find the person And by the way, if you don't know who to ask, always ask the marketing department, or in some cases the marketing person. They are probably the people who are updating this stuff. Say, hey, I've got some messages pre-written for you. Do you mind talking about our meeting? Because we'd love to see more people come to it since we're using your wonderful, wonderful facility. And I'm going to tell you that I bet that they would say yes, unless they have some sort of crazy draconian policy saying no. But that's why I recommend that. All right, so last little thing on LinkedIn is groups, and so this is interesting. LinkedIn groups can be large or small. They can be run by official organizations, as you see here. This is the Anxiety and Depression Association of America. Or they can be run by individuals with similar professional interests. So I belong to a lot of new media groups. You can join groups and post messages to them. What I would recommend you do, even if you are a facilitator, this would be the one time where I would say, here's where you could use LinkedIn, friendly facilitator who is not a mental health practitioner. You could see if there are any addiction and recovery groups for professionals in your area, and you could join those and post every once in a while about your meeting, or even just say, hey, I just started a meeting called SMART. If you know something about it and you'd like to send people to it, feel free to contact me here. If you don't know anything about it, I'd be happy to talk with you. That's how you could use groups. However, if you are, a little bit more ambitious and you want to create a group for mental health professionals or addiction recovery professionals in your area, you could do that and post information about your meetings. Hopefully, like I said, it's not something that you want to do all the time. You want to participate. You don't want to spam groups. Spamming groups is when you run in, you say, come to my SMART meeting, and then you run out and never post anything else again. You can use that. So we can go on to the last LinkedIn page. So to start a group on LinkedIn, just in case somebody's super ambitious and wants to, you go to that long URL that I'm not going to say out. You can pick your group name, a professional, and a type of group, which would be like a professional or a networking group. You add your group summary, which is really, it can be longer than the Twitter or Facebook ones, but it would be like, this is a group for blank. You can add your website if you have one, and then tell members how they can join. Usually public groups are open to anyone who's interested in the topic. The only group I don't recommend that you create is like an actual like Smart Recovery Omaha for LinkedIn, because I can just tell you right now, having run a few sensitive issue topic groups for general users on LinkedIn, I did one for a life coaching group that I worked with for a while, and like nobody joined because LinkedIn is so professional that nobody wanted to seem like they needed a life coach. So I would say only look to create a group if you want to network with other people in your area who are maybe interested in the same topics as you, but not creating a group in the interest of connecting meeting members. And we can go to the next slide for LinkedIn. I'm sorry, I'm kind of flapping through LinkedIn very quickly, but I do feel that it's probably the least relevant from a facilitator standpoint. Best use, so things to consider on LinkedIn, best use. Should you use it, if at all? For messages, if you choose to use LinkedIn to promote your SMART activities, plan A, but also look at what messages you will share and send. Even if you are an organization, so let's say you would start a company page, or you think as an addiction professional or mental health professional you can mention your SMART meeting via your own private, your personal page, I would say like once every 2 weeks max. So LinkedIn is least effort, but also probably least turnaround. If you do run a group, you do need to moderate it though. So I'm sorry to say that that is one of those things that you actually have to do if you run a group. However, you are way less likely to have crazy stuff get posted on your LinkedIn group than you are your Facebook group, so, or your Facebook page. So there's that. Does anybody have any questions about LinkedIn? I feel like this was very fast because literally it's only helpful to like maybe 1.5 of you, maybe 3, I'm not sure. Lovely. Let's go on really quickly because I promise I will stop talking in 8 minutes. So other ways to connect. So there's 3 that I want to talk to you guys about. The first is one that if you are from Austin, I don't know if anyone here is the Smart Recovery Austin, but you guys are awesome. So meetup.com is a easy online service that helps people share information about meetings or clubs. It's called Meetup, and the groups themselves are called Meetup groups. But a lot of organizations use it to get people to come to their meetings. So like I said, I outed myself as a knitter who belongs to the Omaha area knitting group. We use, actually both of the art organizations that I work with here in town uses Meetup to publicize to new members. Smart Recovery Austin, their Meetup page is like perfect. I love it. And I highly recommend if you are going to start a meeting, this is a great place to start. It is very easy to do. You have to sign up and start your meeting. You have to have a contact person. There are many different things that you can do. The reason I don't have an in-depth thing about it is because we decided to add it to the last minute. But membership is public, so people who join the meetup, they might not come to the meetings, they may or may not, but they're actually paying attention to what you said. So as you see with Smart Recovery Austin, they have a great introduction that is very familiar to anyone who uses Smart. They have a number of members that are open. They actually put all of their schedule up, so it's one of those things where you can literally put up your whole schedule for the year if you want, and then just remind people of it. And Meetup will send you little reminders if you belong to a group. Every week it'll send you like, here's all the meetups in your area happening this week. So I can't recommend Meetup enough. And the only thing is it's not one of what we call the big 3, which is Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. So people don't usually think about it. But especially if you're in a larger metro area, and I call Omaha like a larger metro area, we have like 500 to 700 meetups listed. So even if you're in a larger area, it could be a great thing to do. So and Smart Recovery Austin is really a great one to look at. So that's meetup.com, and it is also very self-explanatory to put together. The next one is a little out of left field, but it's something that I do with a lot of my nonprofits. Great. Mark actually just said that he recommends Meetup to people in chat when they're looking for groups to do, to get out and do sober things. Absolutely. I actually did a search when I was looking for the Smart Austin website or Meetup group, and you know, I typed in Smart, and like 100 groups came up that was like sober groups in different areas. So it can also be a great resource as well. So community calendars are a little different. So most television networks, local NPR stations, so don't go to npr.org, but your local NPR station, your local PBS station, depending on how large your market is, or local websites, so newspaper websites. There are even, depending on your area, there are websites that are independent but are devoted to your area. So like here in Omaha, we have 2. One is called omaha.net, and one of which is called omaha.com. And the larger your city, the more of these you will have. you can look for these community calendars. And as you see on this one, it's from KMTV Omaha, which I believe is CBS. They have a submit your event on the right-hand side. Most of the time you can add recurring events. This is great because this is literally where like people will go to look for stuff. The other thing, though, is just knowing from some of my friends who work, like I have a friend who works at the NPR station here, they'll actually source stories from their community calendars. So if they see an event that's interesting, they might follow up with the event organizers as well. So I can't recommend that enough. One of the other things is, particularly if it's recurring and you can submit a recurring event, you can do it, and you can do it once, and it's kind of like a might have to do it like once a year or once every 6 months or something like that. But I cannot recommend these enough. Not very social media-y, but it is web online-y, so I included it. And then the final one is websites and blogs. And I say blogs, so blogs are really easily updatable websites. So blog sounds scary because you think you have to sit down and write a whole bunch of stuff, and it has to be thinky thoughts or very well-formed ideas, and like, so for example, when I say maybe you can start a blog for your meeting, I don't mean maybe you can start a blog like the awesome Smart Recovery blog, because it's awesome and it has a lot of really well thought out articles. What I really mean is having your own place for information for attendees or potential attendees. So blogs are really easily updatable websites. If you want free ones, you can go to blogger.com, or if you are not into using Google products, you can use WordPress.com. I cannot recommend WordPress enough. I use WordPress for my professional stuff, and then I have some personal blogs as well. And if you are not technical, WordPress is like super easy. You sign up, you pick a look, and you're done. You have a blog/website. You will need to update regularly, but regularly doesn't mean every day, and regularly doesn't mean with really in-depth content. If you're looking just for a meeting place, or for a meeting, like a blog for your meeting, it could be the place where you post information like, hey, we usually meet in this room, now we're going to meet in this room. Or if it's your very first SMART meeting, what should you expect? What can you bring? What can you not bring? What are the ground rules? The reason I advocate for it is, first of all, if people are searching for meetings, particularly in your city, a lot of the alternatives to SMART have their own websites or their own blogs that they keep updated, so that's one thing that can be helpful. The other thing is, and this is something that I haven't mentioned before, but in terms of the social media sphere, you are not, if you start a Facebook page, or you start a Twitter account, or you start a LinkedIn company page, or you do something truly crazy like Instagram or something like that, don't do that. I can't imagine a use for Instagram with SMART right this very second. But if you use one of those, you're not guaranteed it's going to be there tomorrow. At least with a space like a blog, you can always direct people to it. Most of the website places, unless you remember GeoCities from like 2003, free blog hosting places rarely go out of, rarely go under because they're just bought by other people. But for people who use just solely, for example, Facebook to promote their stuff, you never know when the bottom is going to fall out of Facebook. So having your own space as well to put some of that news and information can be really helpful. So you can also include your address on promotional items. That's okay, I'm almost done. You do need to update regularly. It can be the same stuff. One of the things I failed to mention was that across all of this, you don't, it's okay, you don't have to come up with new stuff for each medium. You might have to modify what you say, because obviously you can say a longer message on Twitter than you do on Facebook, but or a longer message on blogs than you do on Facebook than you do on Twitter, but you can still say the same stuff. So you don't have to recreate the wheel every time you go to update each different thing. You can meet, yeah, you can use across platforms. I'm a big believer in what we call repurposing. And then I will answer this question from Tiggy. So minimal time if used. Facebook, 1 time per week, absolutely. Twitter, 1 time per day. Meetup, yes. Actually, Tiggy, you have it great. No, community, the only one you don't have correct, or the two, community calendars is actually more of a set it and forget it thing. So it really does depend on the calendar, but if they're repeating, you can do it, say this meeting happens every month or every week, and you might never have to go back and update it. So it could be a one-time thing. With a blog, it doesn't have to be 1 time per day. It can be 1 time per week. So if you plan well, and the other thing I can send you guys, I use Excel. That's the dirty little secret of social media people. Most of us use Excel to keep organized. I can send you a blank, or actually I can send you a sample content calendar that I use that really is like how I plot out all my stuff, and you can even see how my messages are the same across every thing that I post. So there might be more of them in one thing or another, but I would be happy to send like a redacted one to you guys to use, or to Dee if you'd like to pass it around. So yeah, so I know this was very high level. I hope, thank you. This is very high level. If anybody, you know, has questions, like Dee said, you can email them or post them to the message board. What we were talking about is, you know, if you have questions, and I'm sure you'll probably have questions after tonight, think about it. If at 2 weeks from now you're like, well, crap, I went to go start something and now I've forgotten like half of what she said, feel free to ask it. I'll probably check the message board in a couple weeks and answer all of the questions in a big batch. So feel free to, or I can, or you can contact Dee and she'll get it to me. And no question is too weird, honestly. I get a lot of weird social media questions, so no social media question is too weird. So thank you guys so much. I'm sorry I took so much of your time on a Friday night.
No, this was just fantastic, and as you see, everybody stuck with us, and really, it was just terrific. I can't tell you. I think we probably could have done, you know, like 3 individual ones, one for Facebook, one for Twitter, and one for
you know,
the rest of them.
Yeah, well, you know, if you ever want to do like a Q&A where I literally just come in and y'all lob random social media questions at me, I would be more than happy to do that, because nothing makes me happier than talking about this stuff. So.
Well, we'll definitely think about that. I thank you all very, very much for your time and for coming. I hope it was useful. Corey, again, thank you very much. I think it was fantastic. Everybody seemed very engaged to me, and I thank you. I look forward to seeing people in Washington, and I hope everybody has a fantastic weekend.